The Tales of the Laxdale Saga is brought to you by NotaProfit.org, the place on the internet to find spiritual guidance powered by artificial intelligence. The Laxdale Saga, Part 12, Chapter LXVIII, The Death of Thorgils Hallason, A.D. 1020. Thorarin was the name of a man who lived at Longdale. He was a chieftain, but not a mighty one. His son was named Audgisl, and was a nimble sort of a man. Thorgils Hallason took the chieftainship from them both, father and son. Audgisl went to see Snorri Godi, and told him of this unfairness, and asked him to help. Snorri answered only by fair words, and belittled the whole affair, but answered, now that Grig is getting too forward and swaggering. Will Thorgils then happen on no man that will not give in to him in everything? No doubt he is a big man and doughty, but men as good as he is have also been sent to hell. And when Audgisl went away, Snorri gave him an inlaid axe. The next spring, Thorgils Hallason and Thorstein the Black went south to Bergfirth, and offered atonement to the sons of Helgi and his other kinsmen, and they came to terms of peace on the matter. And fair honor was done to Helgi's side. Thorstein paid 2 parts of the atonement for the manslaughter, and the 3rd part Thorgils was to pay, payment being due at the Thing. In the summer Thorgils rode to the Thing, but when he and his men came to the lava field by Thingvellir, they saw a woman coming to meet them, and a mighty big one she was. Thorgils rode up to her, but she turned aside, and said, this take care if you go forward, and be wary of Snorri's wiles. No one can escape, for so wise is Snorri. And after that she went her way. Then Thorgils said, it has seldom happened so before, when luck was with me, that you were leaving the Thing when I was riding to it. He now rode to the Thing and to his own booth, and through the early part the Thing was quiet. It happened one day during the Thing that folks' clothes were hung out to dry. Thorgils had a blue hooded cloak, which was spread out on the booth wall, and men heard the cloak say thus hanging wet on the wall, a flooded cloak knows a braid trick. I do not say he does not know too, he has been lately washed. This was thought a most marvellous thing. The next day Thorgils went west over the river to pay the money to the sons of Helgi. He sat down on the lava above the booths, and with him was his foster. Brother Halldor and sundry more of them were there together. The sons of Helgi came to the meeting. Thorgils now began to count out the money. Audgisl Thorarinsson came near, and when Thorgils had counted 10, Audgisl struck at him, and all thought they heard the head say 11 as it flew off the neck. Audgisl ran to the booth of the Waterfurthers, and Halldor rushed after him, and struck him his death blow in the door of the booth. These tidings came to the booth of Snorri Godi, how Thorgils was slain. Snorri said, you must be mistaken. It must be that Thorgils Hallason has slain someone. The man replied, why, the head flew off his trunk. Then perhaps it is true, said Snorri. This manslaughter was peacefully atoned, as is told in the saga of Thorgils Hallason. Chapter LXVIII. Gudrun's marriage with Thorkell Eyjolfson. The same summer that Thorgils Hallason was killed, a ship came to Bjorn's haven. It belonged to Thorkell Eyjolfson. He was by then such a rich man that he had 2 merchant ships on voyages. The other ship came to Ramfirth to Bor, Dire. They were both laden with timber. When Snorri heard of the coming of Thorkell, he rode at once to where the ship was. Thorkell gave him a most blithe welcome. He had a great deal of drink with him in his ship, and right unstintedly it was served, and many things they found to talk about. Snorri asked tidings of Norway, and Thorkell told him everything well and truthfully. Snorri told in return the tidings of all that had happened here while Thorkell had been away. Now it seems to me, said Snorri, you had better follow the counsel I set forth to you before you went abroad, and should give up voyaging about and settle down in quiet, and get for yourself the same woman to wife of whom we spoke then. Thorkell replied, I understand what you are driving at. Everything we bespoke then is still uppermost in my mind, for indeed I begrudge me not the noblest of matches could it but be brought about. Snorri spake, I am most willing and ready to back that matter up on your behalf, seeing that now we are rid of both the things that seem to you the most troublesome to overcome. If you were to get Gudrun for wife at all, in that Bolli is revenged and Thorgils is out of the way. Thorkell said, Your counsels go very deep, Snorri, and into this affair I go heart and soul. Snorri stayed in the ship several nights, and then they took a 10-oared boat that floated alongside of the merchant ship, and got ready with 5 and 20 men, and went to Holyfell. Gudrun gave an exceeding affectionate welcome to Snorri, and a most goodly cheer they had. And when they had been there one night, Snorri called Gudrun to talk to him, and spake, Matters have come to this, that I have undertaken this journey for my friend Thorkell, Eyjolf's son, and he has now come here, as you see, and his errand hither is to set forth the wooing of you. Thorkell is a man of noble degree. You know yourself all about his race and doings in life, nor is he short of wealth either. To my mind, he is now the one man west about here who is most likely to become a chieftain. If to that end he will put himself forward. Thorkell is held in great esteem when he is out there, but by much is he more honored when he is in Norway in the train of titled men. Then answers Gudrun, My sons Thorlake and Bolli must have most to say in this matter, but you, Snorri, are the third man on whom I shall most rely for counsels in matters by which I set a great store, for you have long been a wholesome guide to me. Snorri said he deemed it a clear case that Thorkell must not be turned off. Thereupon Snorri had the sons of Gudrun called in, and sets forth the matter to them, laying down how great an help Thorkell might afford them by reason of his wealth and wise foresight, and smoothly he framed his speech on this matter. Then Bolli answered, My mother will know how most clearly to see through this matter, and herein I shall be of one mind with her own will. But to be sure, we shall deem it wise to set much store by your pleading this matter, Snorri, for you have done to us mightily well in many things. Then Gudrun spake, In this matter we will lean most on Snorri's foresight, for to us your counsels have been wholesome. Snorri urged the matter on by every word he spoke, and the counsel taken was that Gudrun and Thorkell should be joined in marriage. Snorri offered to have the wedding at his house, and Thorkell, liking that well, said, I am not short of means, and I am ready to furnish them in whatever measure you please. Then Gudrun spake, It is my wish that the feast be held here at Holyfell. I do not blench at standing the cost of it, nor shall I call upon Thorkell or any one else to trouble themselves about this matter. Often indeed you show, Gudrun, said Snorri, that you are the most high mettled of women. So this was now settled that the wedding should take place when it lacked 6 weeks of summer. At matters thus settled, Snorri and Thorkell went away, Snorri going home, and Thorkell to his ship, and he spent the summer, turn and turn about, at tongue or at his ship. Time now wore on towards the wedding feast. Gudrun made great preparation with much ingatherings. Snorri came to the feast together with Thorkell, and they brought with them well, nigh 60 men, and a very picked company that was, for most of the men were in dyed raiments. Gudrun had well, nigh 120 first bidden guests. The brothers Bolli and Thorlake, with the first bidden guests, went to meet Snorri and his train, and to him and his fellowship was given a right cheery welcome, and their horses are taken in hand, as well as their clothes. They were shown into the guests' chamber, and Thorkell and Snorri and their followers took seats on the bench that was the upper one, and Gudrun's guests sat on the lower. Chapter LXIX, the quarrel about Gunnar at the feast, that autumn Gunnar, the slayer of Thorgils, had been sent to Gudrun for trust and keep, and she had taken him in, his name being kept secret. Gunnar was outlawed because of the slaying of Thorgils, Jatir's son, as is told in the Laxdale Saga. He went about much with a hidden head, for that many great men had their eyes upon him. The first evening of the feast, when men went to wash, a big man was standing by the water. He was broad of shoulder and wide of chest, and this man had a hat on his head. Thorkell asked who he was. He named himself as it seemed best to him. Thorkell says, I think you are not speaking the truth. Going by what the tale tells you would seem more like to Gunnar, the slayer of Thorgils. And if you are so great a hero as other men say, you will not keep hidden your name. Then said Gunnar, You speak most eagerly on this matter, and truth to tell, I think I have no need to hide myself from you. You have rightly named your man, but then, what have you chiefly bethought yourself of having done to me? Thorkell said he would like that he should soon know it, and spake to his men, ordering them to lay hands on him. Gudrun sat on the dais at the upper end of the hall, together with other women, all becoifed with white linen, and when she got aware of this, she rises up from the bridal bench, and calls on her men to lend Gunnar help, and told them to give quarter to no man who should show any doubtful behavior. Gudrun had the greatest number of followers, and what never was meant to happen seemed like to befall. Snorri Godi went between both sides and bade them allay this storm. The one thing clearly to be done by you, Thorkell, is not to push things on so hotly, and now you can see what a stirring woman Gudrun is, as she overrules both of us together. Thorkell said he had promised his namesake, Thorkell Eyjolfson's son, that he would kill Gunnar if he came into the countrysides of the west, and he is my greatest friend. Snorri spake, you are much more in duty bound to act as we wish, and for yourself, it is a matter of the greatest importance, for you will never find such another woman as Gudrun, however far you may seek. And because of Snorri's reasoning, and seeing that he spoke the truth, Thorkell quieted down, and Gunnar was sent away that evening. The feast now went forward well and bravely, and when it was over, the guests got ready to go away. Thorkell gave to Snorri very rich gifts, and the same to all the chief men. Snorri asked Bolli to go home with him, and to live with him as long as he liked. Bolli accepted this with thanks, and rides home to Tung. Thorkell now settled down at Holyfell, and took in hand the affairs of the household, and it was soon seen that he was no worse a hand at that than at trade, voyaging. He had the hall pulled down in the autumn, and a new one built, which was finished when the winter set in, and was both large and lofty. Between Gudrun and Thorkell dear love now grew up, and so the winter passed on. In the spring Gudrun asked how Thorkell was minded to look out for Gunnar, the slayer of Thidrandi. He said that Gudrun had better take the management of that matter, for you have taken it so hard in hand that you will put up with nothing but that he be sent away with honour. Gudrun said he guessed aright. I wish you to give him a ship, and therewithal such things as he cannot do without. Thorkell said and smiled, you think nothing small on most matters, Gudrun, and would be ill served if you had a mean-minded man for a husband, nor has that ever been your heart's aim. Well, this shall be done after your own will, and carried out it was. Gunnar took the gifts most gratefully. I shall never be so long armed as to be able to repay all this great honour you are doing to me, he said. Gunnar now went abroad and came to Norway, and then went to his own estates. Gunnar was exceeding wealthy, most great-hearted, and a good and true man withal. Chapter LXIX. Thorlake goes to Norway. Thorkell Eyjolfson became a great chieftain. He laid himself out much for friendships and honours. He was a masterful man within his own countryside, and busied himself much about lawsuits, yet of his pleadings at court there is no tale to tell here. Thorkell was the richest man in Broadfirth during his lifetime next after Snorri. Thorkell kept his house in good order. He had all the houses at Holyfell rebuilt large and strong. He also had the ground of a church marked out, and gave it out that he had made up his mind to go abroad and fetch timber for the building of his church. Thorkell and Gudrun had a son who was called Gellir. He looked early most likely to turn out well. Bolli spent his time turn about at Tung or Holyfell, and Snorri was very fond of him. Thorlake his brother lived at Holyfell. These brothers were both tall and most doughty looking, Bolli being the foremost in all things. Thorkell was kind to his stepsons, and Gudrun loved Bolli most of all her children. He was now 16, and Thorlake 20 years old. So, once on a time, Thorlake came to talk to his stepfather and his mother, and said he wished to go abroad. I am quite tired of sitting at home like a woman, and I wish that means to travel should be furnished to me. Thorkell said, I do not think I have done much against you two brothers in anything since our alliance began. Now, I think it is the most natural thing that you should yearn to get to know the customs of other men, for I know you will be counted a brisk man, wheresoever you may come among doughty men. Thorlake said he did not want much money, for it is uncertain how I may look after matters, being young, and in many ways of an unsettled mind. Thorkell bade him have as much as he wanted. After that Thorkell bought for Thorlake a share in a ship that stood up in Damiel Ness, and saw him off to his ship, and fitted him well out with all things from home. Thorlake journeyed abroad that summer. The ship arrived in Norway. The lord over the land then was King Olaf the Holy. Thorlake went forthwith to see King Olaf, who gave him a good welcome. He knew Thorlake from his kindred, and so asked him to stay with him. Thorlake accepted with thanks, and stayed with the king that winter, and became one of his guard, and the king held him in honor. Thorlake was thought the briskest of men, and he stayed on with King Olaf for several months. Now we must tell of Bolli Bollisson. The spring, when he was 18 years old, he spoke to his stepfather and his mother, and said that he wished they would hand him out his father's portion. Gudrun asked him what he had set his mind on doing, since he asked them to give him this money. Bolli answered, "It is my wish that a woman be wooed on my behalf, and I wish," said Bolli, "that you, Thorkell, be my spokesman and carry this through." Thorkell asked what woman it was Bolli wished to woo. Bolli answered, "The woman's name is Thorgils, and she is the daughter of Snorri the priest. She is the woman I have most at heart to marry. I shall be in no hurry to marry, if I do not get this one for wife, and I set a very great store by this matter being carried out." Thorkell answered, "My help is quite welcome to you, my son, if you think that if I follow up this matter much weight lies thereon. I think the matter will be easily got over with Snorri, for he will know well enough how to see that a fair offer is made him by such as you." Gudrun said, "I will say at once, Thorkell, that I will let's spare nothing, so that Bolli may but have the match that pleases him, and that for two reasons. First, that I love him most, and then he has been the most whole-hearted of my children in doing my will." Thorkell gave it out that he was minded to furnish Bolli off handsomely. It is what for many reasons is due to him, and I know, withal, that in Bolli a good husband will be purchased. A little while after Thorkell and Bolli went with a good many followers to Tongue. Snorri gave to them a kind and blithe welcome, and they were treated to the very best of cheers at Snorri's hands. Thordis, the daughter of Snorri, was at home with her father. She was a woman both goodly and of great parts. When they had been a few nights at Tongue, Thorkell broached the wooing, bespeaking on behalf of Bolli an alliance with Snorri by marriage with Thordis, his daughter. Snorri answers, "It is well you come here on this errand. It is what I might have looked for from you. I will answer the matter well, for I think Bolli one of the most hopeful of men, and that woman I deem well given in marriage who is given in marriage to him. It will, however, tell most in this matter, how far this is to Thordis' own mind, for she shall marry such a man only on whom she sets her heart." This matter coming before Thordis, she answered such wise as that therein she would lean on the foresight of her father, saying she would sooner marry Bolli, a man from within her own countryside, than a stranger from farther away. And when Snorri found that it was not against her wish to go with Bolli, the affair was settled, and the betrothal took place. Snorri was to have the feast at his house about the middle of summer. With that Thorkell and Bolli rode home to Holyfell, and Bolli now stayed at home till the time of the wedding feast. Then Thorkell and Bolli array themselves to leave home, and with them all the men who were set apart therefore, and a crowded company, and the bravest band that was. They then rode on their way, and came to Tongue, and had a right hearty welcome there. There were great numbers there, and the feast was of the noblest, and when the feast comes to an end the guests get ready to depart. Snorri gave honourable gifts to Thorkell, yea, and to both of them, him and Gudrun, and the same to his other friends and relations, and now each one of those who had gone to the feast rode to his own home. Bolli abode at Tongue, and between him and Thordis dear love sprang speedily up. Snorri did all he could to entertain Bolli well, and to him he was even kinder than to his own children. Bolli received all this gratefully, and remained at Tongue that year in great favour. The next summer a ship came to White River. Half of the ship belonged to Thorlake Bollisson, and the other half of it belonged to some Norwegian man. When Bolli heard of the coming of his brother, he rode south to Bergfirth and to the ship. The brothers greeted each other joyfully. Bolli stayed there for several nights, and then both brothers ride together west to Holyfell. Thorkell takes them in with greatest blitheness, as did also Gudrun, and they invited Thorlake to stay with them for the winter, and that he took with thanks. Thorlake tarried at Holyfell a while, and then he rode to White River, and lets his ship be beached, and his goods be brought to the west. Thorlake had had good luck with him, both as to wealth and honours, for that he had become the henchman of that noblest of lords. King Olaf he now stayed at Holyfell through the winter, while Bolli tarried at Tongue,